All right, welcome to Talkin Investing. I am Tom, and as always, this is not financial advice. Today, I want to talk to you about the company formerly known as Marathon Digital. They are now MARA, stock ticker MARA. They are a Bitcoin mining company. They put out their monthly operational report for the month of November, and they put out several other press releases. They are doing something new that no other Bitcoin miner is doing right now. So I want to go through all of that because I really do think this is making a huge difference for how Marathon is going to do in the future. So if you're new to the channel, we talk about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners all the time. So if that's content you're interested in, please consider subscribing to the channel. And if everybody could do us a giant favor and hit the like button, we're going for 300 likes. It helps the channel out a lot. I appreciate all the likes. And of course, you can leave any thoughts in the comments section below. All right, let's talk about Marathon. I want to start out with their monthly operational report. So I will tell you, I give this monthly operational report an A. I think they had an incredible November. I'm a little surprised at how the stock is doing in the short term. We went through this a few weeks ago where the stock had a big pullback and then it had about a 70% run up. So I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen this time, but I do think they had some big news, and this was a stellar report in my opinion, and I'm going to go through right now and tell you why I think that. Okay, MARA announces Bitcoin production and mining operations update for November 2024. Energized hash rate increased 15%. That's month over month. So they are now at 46.1 exahash. This makes them by far the biggest Bitcoin miner. So I'm just going to go to a chart and put that in perspective. This chart is as of October 31st. As of the end of October, Marathon had about 40 exahash. The closest company was CleanSpark at 31, Riot then at 29, and Iris at 21. Now, I mentioned Iris because they had a big jump. So these three have reported. CleanSpark's now at around 34, Riot's at around 31, and Iron jumped all the way up to 28. But the thing is, Marathon's jumped up to 46. So despite the fact that all three of these companies added a lot of exahash, Marathon is increasing the distance between their competition. So they are by far the biggest Bitcoin miner by exahash. They're by far the biggest Bitcoin miner by the amount of Bitcoin that they mine per month. They're by far the biggest Bitcoin miner by the amount of Bitcoin that they hodl on their balance sheet. So they have separated themselves from the field for the time being, and with the announcements that they put out, you're going to see, I think that's going to continue to happen. Okay, 254 blocks won in November, 27% increase month over month. So again, a huge increase in production. So we'll get to how many Bitcoin that was. Okay, management's commentary. November was a record-breaking month for MARA, with our mining operations achieving unprecedented levels of production driven by the successful deployment of additional miners and enhanced operational efficiency. This from Fred Thiel, who is the CEO of Marathon and the chairman of the board. It further goes on to say, we mined 254 blocks, a 27% increase over October, and the most blocks in a month on record. So this was their all-time record. Our Bitcoin production grew 26%, basically in line with the amount of blocks they mined, month over month, to 907 Bitcoin in the month of November. So I'm going to go to a chart and put that in perspective. This is the month of October. Marathon mined 717 Bitcoin. They were in first place, and they increased that by 26 cents. They jumped all the way into the 900s with 907 Bitcoin mined. CleanSpark and Riot have already put their reports out. CleanSpark mined 622 and Riot 495. So at this point, they are significantly ahead of the rest of the field. I'm waiting for Iron. They may be competitive with Riot, but they're going to be nowhere near the 907 that Marathon put out. So again, this is a staggering number. Okay, as of the month of November, we have acquired 12,965 Bitcoin year to date at an average price of 77,692 and mined an additional 8,563 Bitcoin. So I'm going to take a break and go to some of their other press releases to explain what they mean by this, because acquired 12,965 Bitcoin means they are buying Bitcoin on the open market, in addition to mining 8,563 Bitcoin on their own. They've bought another almost 13,000. So I want to show you what they're doing. This has all happened in a 2 or 3 week period. If we go back to November 21st, which wasn't that long ago, we get this press release. MARA Holdings completes a $1 billion offering of 0% convertible senior notes due in the year 2030. So a couple of things about this. This was an oversized offering. It started out at $700 million. We said right away on this channel, on the members only, that this was going to end up being $1 billion, and sure enough, it ended up being $1 billion. So they are raising money at 0% interest convertible notes and buying Bitcoin with it. Now, they did take $200 million of this and pay off some other debt that was at a much higher interest rate. So I find it fascinating. This is the MicroStrategy philosophy. They are offering 0% notes. So this actually, I am surprised these companies are getting away with this. This really means that there's people out there with great confidence in these Bitcoin miners if they are willing to do 0% convertible notes. Through most of the Bitcoin miners' history, they couldn't borrow money from anybody at any rate. And the few times they did borrow money, it was at very, very high interest rates, 10%, 12%, 14%, some even worse than that in the last cycle. So how things have changed. So this was on November 21st. So this was $1 billion. On December 2nd, I mean, you're talking only 10 or 12 days later, Marathon Holding announces pricing of oversubscribed and upsized offering of zero coupon convertible senior notes due in 2031. Once again, these are 0% interest notes. This started out again as a $700 million offering, and it ended up at $1 billion. So the appetite for this is huge. So they've now borrowed $2 billion basically in the last 3 weeks at 0% interest due in 2030 and 2031. With that, they're able to pay off a lot of their other debt that was at higher interest rates and buy a significant amount of Bitcoin. So they are the only Bitcoin miners doing this. They have by far the biggest hodl stack, and that is just going to continue to increase. So I want to go to a chart and show you that. Okay, this was through the end of October. So this is prior to what they just did with the $1 billion that they're raising right now. So they had 27,562 Bitcoin on their balance sheet at the end of October. We'll talk about where that number is at the end of November. It's up dramatically. You see Riot, Hut, and CleanSpark somewhere in the 9 to 10,000 range. Riot and CleanSpark are hodling 100% of their Bitcoin. So again, they have reported CleanSpark now has passed Hut, and they have about 9,200 Bitcoin on their balance sheet. Riot is just over 11,000 Bitcoin on their balance sheet, but Mara has jumped from 27,562, already 2.5 times the next closest. If we go back to their operational report, they say total hodl of 34,959, so just under 35,000 Bitcoin. More than triple, 3.5 times more than their closest competitor. This is the second most Bitcoin that any publicly traded company holds on their balance sheet. Of course, MicroStrategy is the first, and they hold 10 times this amount of Bitcoin. But that leaves Marathon in second place, and really nobody is close to Marathon. Third place is a pretty distant third place, and you can see they are just starting to do this. This 35,000 Bitcoin they have on their balance sheet is before the $1 billion that they just raised. And with that, you can see in the month of November, with the first $1 billion that they raised, they bought 6,474 Bitcoin, mined 907 Bitcoin. So that's a total of 7,381 Bitcoin, essentially, that they were able to add to their balance sheet. They should be able to do a very similar thing in the month of December with the $1 billion that they just borrowed, again, at 0% interest. So MicroStrategy has been very successful with this philosophy. They're up about 600% year to date doing this very same thing. We're seeing Marathon jump all in on this strategy. So in addition to being the biggest Bitcoin miner by far on their own, they are loading up their balance sheet with Bitcoin at 0% interest. MicroStrategy stock is outperforming all of the Bitcoin mining stocks significantly. So I do think that as people start to associate Marathon with this part of their business, and in addition to that being the largest scaled Bitcoin miner, I do think there's a massive amount of upside. And again, I want to reiterate, this is not financial advice. I'm just letting you guys know what Marathon is doing. I'm giving you my opinion. I think this is a really good strategy. We've already seen it play out with MicroStrategy. So will the same thing happen to Marathon? Marathon, along with all the Bitcoin miners, have been shorted. There's been a trade going on, long Bitcoin, short the Bitcoin miners. I do think ultimately that trade is going to unravel. And again, in the month of November, Marathon was up 70%. The stock was up 70%. So I think we're starting already to see that unwind with Marathon. I still think there's a lot of room to the upside, but again, that is not financial advice. So Fred goes on to say, as a miner who mines and buys Bitcoin, the hybrid approach provides us significant flexibility to acquire Bitcoin at attractive prices. It further allows us to capitalize on market conditions by buying Bitcoin during price declines, optimizing our acquisition cost. We believe we maintain a competitive advantage through our mining operations, enabling us to produce Bitcoin at a lower cost than the prevailing spot price. The dual approach strengthens our position and enhances our ability to deliver long-term shareholder value. So we're going to see how this plays out. We've already seen how it played out for MicroStrategy, up about 600% in the last 1 year. So I'm not suggesting Marathon's going to have a 600% run from where they are right now. They've already had a huge run from the bottom of the crypto winter, but I do believe there's a lot of room left. This was a stock that was at $83 in the last cycle. Now, of course, their market cap is much bigger. All of these companies have gone through a lot of dilution with at-the-market offerings, but that's another thing about what they're doing here. The Bitcoin miners whose stock, I think, suffered greatly due to all these at-the-market offerings now seem to have the ability to raise money through debt. And of course, there's no better debt than 0% debt convertible, 6 or 7 years into the future. So we'll see if other companies are able to start picking up this philosophy. Is anybody going to follow along with what Marathon is doing? Even if they do, Marathon has such a huge head start on everybody. I do see them continuing to be a leader in this industry. One other number I want to point out, share of available mining rewards. 6.6%. So they got 6.6% of all the Bitcoin that were mined in the month of November. You can see that's up from 4.8% in the month of October, and that is far more than any other publicly traded company is getting. So for all these reasons, I think this was a spectacular report. It was met by the market. This report being issued the same day as they issued the report that they were going to do more convertible notes, their stock's really been sideways or down. So the market hasn't really priced this in yet. So we'll see. Last time this happened, it took a few days and then Marathon took off. We'll see what happens this time. So that's it. That's what's going on with Marathon. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you made it this far, please remember to hit the like button. And if you're interested in this type of content, please remember to subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much for watching. We will see you in the next video.